Welcome.
Dankeschön. So James, I'm excited to talk to you because one of my favorite songs is I Saw the Light, and it always makes me cry. And I play it to people when I'm drunk, I begin to cry. And David said, oh, I've got a friend, James. He produced and mixed the whole album, Something Anything, by Todd Rundgren. And he's coming by. So I said, oh, I need to talk to him. And then we had a gig, and you were the only audience with 4 other people sitting there. And we performed for you. So I'm so grateful that I can talk to you. Can you tell me something about the production of Something Anything by Todd Rundgren?
I was listed as the engineer on that album. I never did production credits on any of the stuff except Nas 3. They asked me if I wanted to be listed as the producer. And to me, engineering and producing has always been almost the same thing, you know. So Todd and I would do series of recordings, and they would become albums. Something Anything, I think, was the last thing we worked on together. He records a lot of stuff, so you never were sure if it was the end of the project or not. You know, he'd have a lot of songs on there.
So he would record in chunks, and you as an engineer had to see the whole picture, but it was like puzzle.
It would be like a puzzle, yes. Because we'd end up with all these different... It was the same way with Nas. When I recorded him with Nas, we would end up with all these songs, and then it always was going to be a double album. That's what they always wanted to do, a double album. Except that it's pretty hard to really make a double album, pull off a double album. So Nas was supposed to be a double album. It ended up with the stuff in the can being Nas 3, and that was after Todd left. So he said, go ahead and say you're the producer. What the hell? But I didn't want to do that because I knew that album was going to, they were going to say that it was, you know, no good for them. So I didn't want to be associated with that. With Something Anything, it would just be long series of recording, you know, weeks of recording different cuts.
Why did Todd chose you?
We met in Hollywood at a recording studio, and I happened to be working with Van Dyke Parks at that time. I think he liked Van Dyke, and we started talking one day in the lobby, and he said, hey, I'm coming out here to do some recording. I don't like the guy I'm working with back there. Are you interested in working with me? So I said, sure. And that begun something that lasted for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. We were recording together.
You have a very distinctive sound. I mean, the Electric Prunes with the Sparks, Stereophonics, and with Todd Rundgren. It's a kind of, you are Mr. Harmonic Distortion. Can you
Mr. Distortion, I like that.
Oh, this sweet harmonic distortion. Can you elaborate about the, I mean, you worked with the Teletronics LA2A.
Well, I like to pump things up, get them all fat inside the limiter, and then let them out, you know, in a measured amount, letting them out. So it was a good way to record drums. If you listen to Sparks, High C, if you look at that song, that was one of the first things that I recorded with them. And I just puffed the drums up, you know, big enough there that they were impressed, and I got the job of working with them.
And there's, on your recording with the Electric Prunes, you know, there's a very distinctive vocal plate. Can you remember that reverb in the studio?
Yes, it was a combination of a chamber. Richie had a chamber there at American Recording, and that and tape delay. We would take the chamber and delay the chamber off of that. And that was always my favorite thing when I was a kid, was listening to Les Paul and Mary Ford records. They sounded like they were made in space, just somewhere where I couldn't even be, you know. It was such a magic kind of a sound. And so I think when I started recording, I looked to that as something that I wanted to do to, you know, to make my mark, make my thing different than everybody else's, make my thing like Les Paul and Mary Ford.
And you were a rock star too, yourself. With the Electric Prunes, 1966, I Had Too Much to Dream last night. How did that feel? when you were on that show, the first time in television?
You know, it all came and went so fast, and you don't appreciate it when it's there because you think, oh, this is just going to keep happening like this, you know? You don't have any compunctions about it. Something is going to go away or you're not going to be able to do it anymore. It actually felt great, and you do something and you get some response for it. It's not like you put something out and nobody... Our first record we put out was Ain't It Hard, and that was a disappointing thing because we put it out and nobody said anything about it, and it was just like it never existed. So Too Much to Dream, they gave us one more chance, and Too Much to Dream, suddenly you're getting response from people, and it's, you know, going up the charts, and you're getting people calling you for gigs and stuff. So I guess they've done a couple of movies that explain it the same way. There's just no way to explain it to somebody. It's magic.
But how did you had the guts to come out with a song which is so different for this time? I mean, when you were on the show, after you, he said, and now to Neil Diamond.
Talent again, Mr. Neil Diamond.
How did that feel?
Right, or Petula Clark. Yeah, well, that's the way I felt about it, actually. I felt it was a unique record. I thought nothing else sounds like this. It sounds like, well, that was the name. The Electric Prunes was supposed to sound like kind of weird and electronic. And I thought that it did. It sounded exactly like it was supposed to sound. And we didn't set out to make it sound like that. As we started making the record, it got more and more electronic. We added a backward guitar and a this and a that. Before you know it, the thing starts sounding like it's vibrating all over the place. So that's what we wanted.
So the backwards guitar you got from experimenting in the garage with a 4-track recorder, right?
We did, yeah. We recorded on 4-track. They would put the 4-track tape on, push record, and we would record what we were doing. This is at Leon Russell's house, and they didn't pay much attention to it. I went in the control room, and Dave was talking to somebody else. Hassinger was talking to the engineer or something, and the tape ran off the end, and that sound that you hear at the beginning of Too Much to Dream was the sound recorded backwards when they flipped the tape over. It's kind of hard to explain. When they flipped the tape over and played it, that was the sound. And we said, cut that off. We're going to use that for something else. And I guess it was a month later, we were doing Too Much to Dream. And I said, you want to know what the beginning is? That's the beginning. So it worked.
How did you know that people could like this kind of sound? Because it was rebellious, you know?
We liked it. That's, you know, I mean, we played it. And you know, it was the truth about it was, when we played that record for everybody, the record executives would listen to it and they'd say, well, that's real good, but where are you going to play something like that, you know? They felt that it was way off the mark. Who's going to listen to that? Or who's going to buy a record like that? So we found a few people that wanted to.
And your influence was Dick Dale with the surfer guitar and the little more, you know, not trashy sound, but, you know, impactful, distorted sound, right?
Right.
So you chased that sound with the Sparks too and the Stereophonics?
Now, when I got Sparks, see, I did the first album with Todd Rundgren as a producer, and we kind of did them, that was their show that we recorded. So the first album was more them as they were then. When they asked me if I wanted to do produce the second album, what I had in mind was to make them a group. You know, I thought they should be a rock and roll band, not so much glam. So the stuff I did with them in Woofer and Tweeter's Clothing was gutsier, more earthy.
There was one song I really liked with a string quartet.
Here Comes Bob.
Can you explain something about this song?
It's about a guy who likes to meet people by running into them with his car. I think he's in England is the thing, and that's his joy is he gets to meet new people. Every time he goes out, he runs into somebody with his car. So Here Comes Bob. Look out.
So you went on tour with Steppenwolf, and The Doors.
Right?
Remember anything special about that tour?
You know, the funny thing is that people, when you play with another band, you rarely see them. I mean, you might see them backstage or something, or if you're partying and stuff. Now, when we came back and did a reunion group of our band in 2000 or 1999, then we hung out with everybody, The Damned, all these other bands we all hung out with. But back in the 60s, you were sort of in competition with everybody else. So you didn't just stop by the dressing room and give them your best, you know. We played with Cream, and I thought they were probably one of the better groups live that we played with. Some of the other groups, it was hard to pull off. You know, they didn't have this sophisticated amps and equipment and presentation stuff that they have now. They were just moving into that. And unfortunately, we came and went before we got to take advantage of it.
But you did hang out with Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
He called you when you were in England.
Right. And that was at his place, though. It wasn't in a musical setting. It was he was playing things on his television set. Remember, it was a lot of upside down video that you had to sort of crank your head around to see what it was. And he was a nice guy. He was just exactly like you'd want him to be. No airs, and
he really liked your guitar player.
He liked Ken, yeah. I wouldn't. We were on this with the same record label, so I didn't know that he would even know about us. But he called us, you know, when we got there. I didn't even know that he'd ever heard our record. And I remember when I heard his record the first time, a guy up in Northern California, we played at a gig, and the guy says, I have something I want to play for you. And he played Are You Experienced, that album for me. And I was pasted to the wall. I couldn't believe. I said, "How many guys are in the group?" He said, "3." And Jimmy played enough for 4 people, so really we're 7 in the group.
And the drummer too, right?
Yeah, the drummer. Good guys.
So at one point you stopped producing and mixing music. You were successful, so why did you stop?
Well, I don't know if I was really successful. I never did anything that really. You know, I never had I Saw the Light or a big record. So it seemed to me like I told my wife, if Sparks, the Woofer and Tweeters Clothing doesn't make it, I had listened to it enough, and I thought, this is new, this is different, this sounds fresh, you know. If this can't make it, I don't know what can. So I told her, if this doesn't make it, I'm going to go into something else. So I went into television, went into trying to produce and direct television.
But you did mix I Saw the Light.
Yes.
And it went super successful, so you are successful.
Well,
I mean, that sound is so distinct.
You don't take somebody else's material as, you know, it's hard to take the credit for somebody else's material for me. If I could write the song, great. If I brought it in and had put together a group and recorded it, that'd be great too. But it was Todd's song, and But
it's your sound, man. It's your sound.
But he's a powerful force, you know. I don't know. Has he ever done anything like that since? No. I don't know. Dave Hassinger, who was, you know, working with the Rolling Stones and with us, I asked him, has he ever done anything after that? Anything like Too Much to Dream? No, nothing. So you could take some kind of pride in that, and I guess, you know, you could feel good about it, but it's not really yours.
Nowadays, what are you into? I mean, the Electric Prunes, they play again live, right?
We've been going around playing, yes.
Who called you?
Stephen Van Zandt called me on the phone and said, I dare you to come here and play at Cave Stomp in New York. And so he said, I'll give you 1 year. Get your band together and come here in 1 year. So 1 year later, we actually did it. We came and played at Cave Stomp. Good experience. We played with The Creation and some of these other groups that were the good guys when we were around. And then we started getting offers to come play on the road and stuff. So we've done a bit of that. We went to Tokyo, we went to Athens and London and different places to play. And it was still good. I still liked it. But it's not like when you're 17.
True. How did you get into mixing? Because normally you cannot go into a studio. You have to learn something, or how did you get into that?
We actually our band was rehearsing in the garage, and a girl came in and asked if she could listen to us. We said, okay, a woman, not a girl, you know. And she said, you know, I know somebody. She heard a few songs. She said, I like you guys. I know somebody who's wants to produce a group, and he's working with the Rolling Stones right now. And the guy was Dave Hassinger, who was their engineer at RCA. She said, I know he's looking for a group to do, so maybe I could put you in touch with him. We didn't believe her, of course. You know, a lot of this kind of stuff happens in Hollywood and stuff. So sure enough, a couple of weeks later, we got a call, and we ended up hooking up with Dave Hassinger. And he was a great mixer. That's what got me interested in doing it, was being around him. And I would go to every session. Some people didn't bother to come, but I was always there. I went to every session. And I got interested in recording and the techniques for recording. And as I told you, I was always enamored with Les Paul and Mary Ford. So when I heard how you could make that sound, that's all I needed to get me interested, get me going.
Do you have any tips for young mixers who love to produce music? Any advice?
Yeah, try to find somebody who's got something to say. Most of the experience of mixing and working with young bands and stuff is you're being pinned against the wall by the sound, and the drummer's saying, I can't hear the drums. The guitar player can't hear the guitar. The bass player can't hear the bass. So nobody has a perspective on their sound like you can. So you kind of have to get out of the way and let them do what they do, and be smart enough to say, don't do that, do this. If they accept it, fine. If they don't accept it, you're going to end up working with somebody else anyway.
When are you going to play live again?
Oh, somebody just asked me about Munich next year, so I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's one of the harder things to do is to go out on the road, particularly at this time of my life. It's a tough thing to do. You got to give up a lot of stuff, and and it's, you know, grueling. Up all night, flying or driving or doing whatever you're doing, and then playing, and then packing up and doing again. It's just the same as it was in the 60s. It's a lot of work. So if anybody asks us, we'll probably end up going out and playing. We're suckers for it.
James, thank you so much for that interview.
Thank you for asking me.
Do you know something about the background of Todd, about this song? For me, the strange thing is, I saw the light in your eyes as something positive. But the meaning of the song and how he sings this is like, I saw the light in your eyes that you're gonna leave me. Or that you're gone.
Oh.
And it's also the chords are happy, but the song in itself is profoundly sad. That's why
I could feel that something wasn't right. Or I saw the light. It might be about Christine, Miss Christine of the GTOs.
Okay.
That was kind of his girlfriend at the time. She didn't know it, but he thought it was. Okay. So yeah, he was a romantic, you know.
Yeah.
That's what it was all about, was romance.